Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror thriller film, Splinter. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The film begins with a gas attendant sitting on a lounge chair as he eats chips. He then hears some rustling behind his back, so he turns around and sees an animal. The attendant slowly walks towards it when it suddenly attacks him. The animal seems to be covered with blood and splinters, and it aggressively kills the attendant. The scene then changes to a nerdy-looking gentleman, Seth, and his hot girlfriend, Polly. The couple stops their car on the campsite in the forest to celebrate their first hormone anniversary. They take the tent and some belongings out of the vehicle to start their celebration. Polly wants to have a hormone exchange under the romantic stars, but it is not possible as they break the tent. Although bummed, Polly has no choice but to agree to Seth's plan to celebrate their anniversary in a motel. So the two leaves the campsite, and while Polly drives, she makes fun of Seth for his knowledge about trees. Shortly after, they encounter another young couple on the road who want to hijack them. It's Dennis, an escaped convict, and his drug addict girlfriend, Lacey. Dennis forces the couple to take him and his girlfriend with them, so they have to follow his order as Dennis has a gun. Lacey attempts to stop Dennis, but he simply controls her into believing him. Dennis then instructs Seth to drive, but Seth does not know how to drive a stick, so he has to let Polly drive. Lacey sits on the passenger seat, while the men are in the backseat. As they settle, Dennis tosses their cell phones and inspects the couple's personal belongings. He discovers that the couple lives together, although they are not married. Also, Seth is a PhD student, so Lacey wants to ask the rookie doctor to write prescriptions, but it turns out Seth specializes in biology. Not long after, Polly accidentally runs over an animal and the car gets a flat tire. Polly and Dennis work on the tire, while Seth and Lacey check the dead animal. Lacey holds the flashlight and gun, so she instructs Seth to revive it. As Seth slowly reaches for it, he notices the big black splinters on the animal's body. At that same time, Dennis gets a small splinter on his left forefinger from rolling the flat tire covered with splinters. Then suddenly the dead animal starts to move like it is coming back to life. So Lacey shoots it twice before running back to the car. Fortunately, Dennis and Polly finish fixing it, so they immediately get in and drive away from the damned place. As they drive away, the splinters on the flat tire grow like it is a life. Lacey is still frantic about it, so he asks if Seth knows anything. Instead of telling him the truth, Seth lies, so Dennis tells Lacey that maybe it is because of the drugs. However, Lacey has not taken any drugs for the last 2 days. Then, another misfortune hits the group. The radiator overheats and smokes, so the group pulls over to the nearby gas station. Lacey goes to the back to look for the bathroom, while Dennis and Polly enter the convenience store. Seth is left alone outside, so he obliges Dennis's instruction to pump gas in the car. Dennis immediately takes things and repeatedly calls for the person in charge, but no one shows up. Meanwhile, Lacey finds the bathroom, but it is locked. She desperately opens it. Inside is the gas attendant covered with blood and splinters. Lacey immediately runs away as the attendant's body starts to contort and chases her. Dennis hears Lacey's screams. He gets out and sees the mutated attendant. He immediately instructs Seth and Lacey to run as he shoots the attendant. However, as Lacey runs away, she trips, hits her head, and dies from the impact. Despite the bullets, the attendant is still alive, and he runs to the car and lies on the hood where the radiator is. The three immediately enter the convenience store and lock it. Polly attempts to call for help, but Dennis breaks the phone, as he might get in prison. As he smokes behind the counter, Dennis notices the CCTV camera and its monitor. He sees Lacey moving as he inspects the monitor, so he cautiously goes outside while the couple watches the monitor. Dennis moves carefully and silently, so the attendant cannot hear him. As he gets to Lacey, he notices that she can only move her right hand. But Dennis still drags her despite that. However, Polly locks the door. Dennis aims the gun at her when Lacey suddenly grabs his foot. Seth steps in, helps Dennis get inside, and slams the door, cutting off Lacey's self-hormone let-go arm. Despite being detached, the arm moves on its own, and it has black splinters. Seth observes it out of curiosity until it dies and stops moving. Then he notices that it is metabolizing, and he informs the two that whatever it is that infected Lacey, it can infect any animal. Then they suddenly hear a banging, and see Lacey banging herself on the windows and door. Her blood spatters on the glass as she forcefully bangs herself. So Seth takes Dennis to the back, where they find another door to get out. Polly instructs Seth to get the keys, so he returns to the front and searches, but he cannot find them. Simultaneously, Dennis informs Polly that they need a screwdriver to pop the door hinges, so Polly instructs Seth to give her a screwdriver, and he immediately finds it. He returns to the back, and Polly starts to pop the hinges. After that, she and Seth remove the rusty back door, but a locked jail-like door prevents them from leaving the gas station. Then suddenly the banging stops, and they hear Lacey's steps on the roof. So they immediately return the rusty back door, before Lacey finds it and uses it to get them. While Lacey is on the roof, the group prepares to leave, when a policewoman stops them outside. She points her gun at Dennis and attempts to arrest him. The couple repeatedly warns the policewoman, but she refuses to listen, as her focus is arresting Dennis. She maintains her gun pointed at Dennis as she calls for backup. However, Lacey suddenly attacks her. Lacey locks the policewoman's upper body using her thighs, lifting her body from the ground. The policewoman can only scream, as Lacey slowly rips her in half. Lacey takes the upper body, leaving the lower half on the ground, possibly because she's a lady, not a nasty man. Polly starts to cry in fear and panic, as their only hope for safety gets killed. Meanwhile, Lacey attaches the upper body to herself, becoming a large creature. The couple argues, as Seth wants to know what they are dealing with first. But Polly wants to make a run for the policewoman's car, and get out of there as soon as possible. As they argue, Denny's left forefinger that was pricked by a splinter, got infected, and its infection slowly spreads across his arm. But he dismisses it, feeling lucky that it's not his self-hormone let-go arm. Then Dennis gets an idea, and informs the couple that they can put the forest on fire, to make sure that help will come. Despite Seth's disagreement with the plan, Dennis and Polly start to pour gas on the back door gap, letting it flow right into the forest. Then suddenly Seth hears a noise from the policewoman's radio, so he informs the two about it, and thinks of an alternative plan. Seth takes a couple of hangers, and twists them to make a hook, so they do not need to go outside. He takes the hook to the small gap at the cashier counter, and slowly pushes it to reach the radio. Dennis takes another hanger, as the hook is not long enough to get the radio. Suddenly his infected arm starts to twist on its own, looking for a self-hormone let-go session right on the spot. But Dennis still dismisses it, wraps his smelly arm, and gives Dennis the hanger. Now that it is long enough, Seth slowly raises the radio cord with the hook, and puts it on the gap when Lacey suddenly appears. Seth immediately pulls the radio inside, but Lacey's arm gets inside the opening. So Polly repeatedly beat it with a bat, until it detaches from Lacey's body. The couple immediately hides, and they realize that Dennis is missing. Seth looks for Dennis as there is no way he could have escaped. Polly calls his name as the arm starts moving to her. The couple immediately backs up, as the arm attacks them. Then suddenly Dennis appears inside a walk-in freezer, and warns the two to be careful with the splinters. Polly immediately gets inside, while Seth kicks the smelly arm away and follows Polly. He gets inside just in time, as the arm repeatedly bangs the glass. After just a few seconds, the arm stops attacking the glass, and wanders outside. Shortly after, Dennis' left arm twists on its own, and blood spatter on the floor, as black splinters come out on his hand. Dennis instructs them to give him the knife to cut off his arm, so as to stop the infection from spreading. The two obliges, but Dennis loses consciousness before he can do it. So the two prepares to do it for Dennis. Polly covers Dennis's arm, while Seth slashes it, but the knife is not sharp enough to cut off the bones. So Seth takes a hollow block and crushes it, finally cutting off the arm. After stopping the bleeding, Dennis confesses that the infection started with the splinter he got from the flat tire. He apologizes for underestimating Seth's capability as a man. He then shares his life story. He says that he is an escaped convict, and wanted to get his girlfriend to Mexico to get her sober. Then out of nowhere, Seth invites the two to go out, as he will check something. They get to Monitor, where Seth points out that the attendant ran for the car, not him. He explains that the organism that infected the attendant, and Lacey goes for the warmest thing and kills it. The radiator was overheated, and its temperature was hotter than Seth's bodily temperature, which is why it was not able to track them inside the refrigerator. Then, he suggests making his body temperature below 93 degrees using ice, so in that way, he can get to the policewoman's car. They return inside the freezer, and cover Seth's body with bags of ice. After a while, Seth goes out, carrying a bag of ice to keep his body cold, and although shaking, he manages to walk to the policewoman's car. Meanwhile, Polly keeps Lacey distracted by throwing a couple of firecrackers out the back door. As he gets inside, Seth realizes that the car and police radio inside is useless without the keys. Dennis and Polly exchanges position, with Polly watching Seth and Dennis lighting the firecrackers. However, Lacey suddenly disappears, and Seth's body temperature slowly rises. Because of that, Lacey appears outside the police car, waiting to attack Seth. Dennis suddenly gets out, holding a firecracker. This gets Lacey's attention, so she walks towards Dennis, who immediately tosses the firecracker and gets inside. Dennis attempts to lock the door, but to no success, and Lacey enters the convenience store. Dennis and Polly quickly hide inside the freezer, but Lacey keeps attacking them, banging her body on the glass. Simultaneously, a discarded firecracker ignites the gas trail, setting the stations back on fire. Seth then comes in carrying a shotgun from the police car, and repeatedly shoots Lacey. This gives Polly and Dennis time to escape from the freezer, so Seth tosses the shotgun to Dennis. After that, he and Polly run outside, leaving Dennis, who is impressively handling the shotgun with one hand. However, he runs out of bullets, allowing Lacey to infect him even more. Despite that, Dennis reloads the gun outside and shoots one of the gas pumps, causing enough explosion to kill Lacey. The couple returns to the station to help Dennis, but he refuses. He gives them his dog tag that contains information to a bank account. He instructs them to give the money to a man's wife that he shot and killed. After that, he instructs the two to leave, and he waits for them to be far enough before he shoots the propane tank. The whole station explodes, killing Dennis and all the other infected individuals. The film ends with Polly and Seth walking on an empty road, talking about trees like nothing happened, unaware that there is another infected animal in the woods, ready to transform and attack any campers anytime. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.